Díomh harja agus fáilte arás go Irish with Rosie. Now I think I got a real useful video for y'all here today. Now I know it's been a few months since I've been on here, but that's because I realized I needed to take a little bit of a break, not only just to live life, but also to deep dive for myself into learning some more. And I tell y'all, it was worth it because I've learned so much over the last few months, and I've even made some breakthroughs in like some pronunciation things that I wasn't very good at before. So that's good. But I'm back today with a fresh video that I hope y'all will enjoy. Alright guys, today's video is going to be on how to ask and answer "Where are you from?" in Irish. Not only that, but also how to give some extra details to give your conversation a little flexibility and color. So first, let's ask, where are you from in Irish? And if you want, you can follow along with me on the notes I have on the other side of the screen. So, where are you from? There are several different ways to ask this question in Irish. Here are a few common ways. Now, the first way to ask this is sort of like the standard way. Standard not meaning like the most correct necessarily, but just the way that I've heard it asked by speakers from all three dialects. And from what I've seen, it seems to be the most taught way to ask this question. So, Carabashu or Carabastu. In Ulster, this would sound like Carib, but in other dialects, you'll also hear it more like Carib, Carabastu, because the A with the accent mark will sound like all in Connacht and Munster, but like in Ulster, especially when it's on an emphasized syllable. In my blue note there, you'll see in this and all following instances, to meaning you and who also meaning you are both equally acceptable. It will vary among speakers. Now there are three other main ways to ask this question. There are even more ways than this, but these are the three most common ways I keep hearing, and they tend to be associated with each of the three main dialects. So in Ulster, you'll hear Cashu or Castu. In Connacht, Cashu or Castu. In Munster, you'll hear Cadastich. Now, I am pronouncing that more of like an Ulster way. I'm not 100% sure, but from what I remember hearing in Munster, what would be pronounced ditch in Ulster will sound more like ritz. So in Munster, I might be butchering this. It might sound more like Cadaskrit, but correct me if I'm wrong down below. So to answer that question in the most basic way, you'll say, I am from blank. In Irish, that would be is as blank me. To say I'm originally from a certain place, you can add Oruchas. Is as blank Oruchas me. Duhas means native place or country, and the word o means from. The preposition as means out of. So for example, if you were to say is as Chiroin Oruchas me, it's almost like you're literally saying is out of Tyrone of origin me. Or of course you could just leave out the originally part completely and just say is as Chiroin me, I'm from Tyrone. So before we go to the yellow note I have underneath that, let's remind ourselves. You might remember from one of my previous videos, I don't remember which one, but I talked about how a lot of country names in Irish start with the definite article un, which means the. It's the singular form of the. So you have some country names, for example, that don't have un, like Alabwan, which means Scotland. But there are a lot that do, such as Unsplan, Spain, literally the Spain. So you'll encounter that a lot in Irish. Okay, so now that we're refreshed on that, let's read the yellow note. If a country name with the definite article un, which means the, comes after the preposition as, out of, you must eclipse the name of the country when possible. Don't eclipse if the name starts with a D or a T. Now, do you remember what eclipsis is? Eclipsis is a special feature of the Irish language where you add, in some grammatical situations, a buddy letter to the beginning consonant of a word that's always associated with that beginning consonant. For example, B is always eclipsed by M. C is always eclipsed by G. And I did a video on eclipsis before, which I'll link down below, but there is like a mnemonic device. There are several ones, but I made up my own because it works better for me, where I can remember which buddy letter goes with which consonant. My brother goes calling next door. Debbie tolerates no guy but Pete because he's fabulous. BH is always treated as a single letter in eclipsis, and it eclipses F. L, M, N, R, and S, and all foreign consonants and vowels are not eclipsed. So in these cases, after the preposition as and the definite article un, when you get to the actual country name, you won't eclipse it if it begins with D or T either. That's due to a kind of a rule of thumb called dentals before dots, which I think I discussed before in my lenition video, but don't worry about it for now. Just remember, don't eclipse D or T in these situations. So that is the way it's done in Connacht and Munster, and technically in Standard Irish. But in Ulster, you'll lenite when possible after the preposition as. Now, lenition is a different concept from eclipsis. I'll also link my videos on lenition down below. But lenition is when you add an H after the beginning consonant of a word, and it changes the sound of the word in a different way. So when is it possible to lenite? You can't lenite after a word that begins with a vowel, L, N, or R, or in some cases of the letter S, if it's SM, SP, ST, SC, or SF. So anyway, in Ulster, you'll lenite when possible after as. But since all country names with un, the definite article, are feminine, it will already come lenited when possible. So in Irish, a feminine definite singular noun is already always lenited when possible. So you don't actually have to change anything. But technically, after the preposition as and the definite article, you will want to lenite even if it's masculine. So as an example of everything I talked about here, the name for Brazil in Irish is an Bhrasaíl. So literally, the Brazil. So in Connacht and Munster, if you were to say, I'm from Brazil, you would say, Is as an Bhrasaíl me. You eclipse the B with its buddy letter M. In Ulster, you'll say, Is as an Bhrasaíl me. Now, Bhrasaíl in an Bhrasaíl was already lenited with an H. But even if it had been masculine, then you would have lenited it anyway. For example, let's just imagine, for imagination's sake, that Brazil was a masculine noun and it's an Bhrasaíl. Then after as, you would say, Is as an Bhrasaíl me. Either way. Now, you can also ask someone where they were born. Where were you born is Cainach e Ruguhu. To answer that, you would say, Rugu in blank me. Now, you'll see I have, for the word in, it can either be I or in. It can also be sa or sun, but we'll get to that at the very end of this video. But for now, let's just think of it as I or in. So, for example, Rugu in Alabwin me. I was born in Scotland. The name of Scotland is Alban, which starts with a vowel, so we'll use in, not I in this case. If the name had begun in a consonant, then you would say I for in instead of in. To say I was raised in, you can say Togu I or in a certain country or place, me. So for example, Togu in America me. I was raised in America. In Ulster, the word for America will be Medica or Meica. In parts of Gweedore, R that has an I before it will often be pronounced like a Y. And I'm trying to incorporate that in my own speech more and more. So that's why I say Meica. In Connacht and Munster, America will be pronounced more like Medica. Anyway, Togu in Meica me. Now, as you're talking about your living history, you can also say I moved to. So to say I moved to in Irish, you'll say Wogme or Wogme Gaji. In the yellow note, I'll get more into the difference between G and Gaji. But for now, let's just look at the example sentence. Wogme Gaji an Spain, Nurvime feadh bhliain daish. I moved to Spain when I was 20 years old. So in the yellow note, you'll see that G and Gaji can both mean to a place in Irish. Use Gaji before country names or any place that contains the definite article un again, but use just G in all other cases. G will trigger an H before words beginning with a vowel. So I have 3 examples down below to illustrate these situations. Wogme Gahalabun. Wogme Gahalabun. I moved to Scotland. Or Wogme Galimnya. I moved to Limerick. Or Wogme Gajian Rank. I moved to France. So Scotland, Alabun, starts with a vowel and doesn't have the word the in it. Un. So we'll just use the word g and put an H in front of Alabun. Limerick, Limnya, starts with a consonant and also doesn't contain the word the. So again, just use g, but don't do anything to the word for Limerick. France is unrank, the France. So we'll want to add g, g, unrank. To be even more colorful and specific in our speech, we can say, I've lived here since. So you would say, Tame Mahoney and Shaw O, which literally means I have been in my residence or in my living here since. So for my example sentence, I have Tame Mahoney and Shaw O Nijeg Noha Hort. I've lived here since 1998. Nijeg, 19, Noha Hort, or Noha Hocht, depending on where you're from, 98. Again, my video on the most basic numbers, the Muilivracha, will help with pronouncing years as well. Another thing you can say is, I've lived here ever since. As in, I moved here whenever, and I've lived here ever since. So to say this, again, you'll start with Tame Mahoney and Shaw, I'm living here, or I've lived here. And then there's 3 different ways you can say ever since. You can say a yeowohin. That's the way I've heard people in Donegal in Ulster say the word for ever, a yeo, as if it's spelled A-R-I-A-M-H. But you can also just leave the part off and just say riao. In that case, you won't pronounce the R like a Y. So, Tame Mahoney and Shaw a yeo ohin, or Tame Mahoney and Shaw riao ohin. Another option is to say Tame Mahoney and Shaw ohin ilye. So from what I've researched, ilye can have shades of meanings, but it generally means in the direction of or herewards. So this kind of has a connotation of from then on to now, ever since. The last option you have for ever since is Tame Mahoney and Shaw ue shinamah. which literally means from then out. So I've lived here from then on out. By the way, y'all, I really need to get myself like a ring light or something. So on the other side there, I have like this octopus clown lamp. And I need it in here because otherwise the lighting's super bad and I look orange. So if you see these weird things in my glasses, that's what it is. This is a low-tech studio, y'all. Now let's look at how to say, I lived there until I was. Honi me and shin gaji garo me. Honi me and shin gaji garo me. For example, Honi me and shin gaji garo me kuig bhliain jeg deish. I lived there until I was 15 years old. Now to simply just say I live in, you'll say tame mahoni I or in. To say I live in a certain place now, you'll add a nish. Tame mahoni in blank a nish. So for example, tame mahoni in Aden, I live in Ireland. Or tame mahoni in Aden a nish, I live in Ireland now. Okay, so next, how would we say I have lived here for a certain amount of time? Tame mahoni in Shaw le a certain amount of time a nuas. By the way, in some of these sentences, you might hear me pronounce the word me for I or me like ma. Now technically you'll pronounce it me, but in everyday speech, a lot of times you'll just hear it pronounced like ma, especially when you're not like speaking slowly or having emphasis on the word. But anyway, for an example, Tame mahoni and Shaw le ya bhliain anuas. I've lived here for 2 years now. Now in this phrase, you're not actually saying the word now, but it kind of has the connotation as though you're saying I've lived here for a certain amount of time now. There are a few different ways you can say the word for in Irish, as in for a certain duration of time. You'll use le or le anuas for talking about a period of time that began in the past and is still continuing into the present. Now again, anuas doesn't literally mean now, which would be the word anish, but it kind of has the connotation of it in this usage. It literally means downward from above. And you might remember that from my video on how to say up and down in Irish. So you can almost think of this example sentence almost like saying, I've lived here for 2 years, coming on down till now. So for our last example, instead of saying I have lived here for, as in I moved here at a certain time and I'm still living here now, you can also say I lived there for. Now we're going to use a different word or term for in this sentence. In this case, we'll use the term erfai. I think I've also heard this pronounced erfau in Ulster, but I might be wrong. In Connacht, you would say this erfa, and I'm not really sure in Munster, but I think you can say erfag. But for this instance, we're going to say it the Ulster way, erfai. So I lived there for honi me and shin erfai. So for my example sentence, I have honi me and shin erfai je mhliain. I lived there for 10 years. So what's the difference between the previous version of for a duration of time and this usage of for a duration of time? Well, in the previous instance, the word for the duration, the period of time had to start sometime in the past and be continuing up until the present. In this case, for erfai, the duration has to have either started in the past and ended in the past, or be set to start in the future and end in the future. But either way, when you use erfai, it cannot touch the present. Starting in the past and ending in the past, or starting in the future and ending in the future. So in this case, we're talking about in the past. I lived there for a certain duration of time in the past. That all happened in the past. I don't live there anymore. Honi me and shin erfai je mhliain. So on my last page, I just have a special note for the usage of the preposition for in Irish. So the preposition for in will be I before a noun starting with a consonant, as we talked about previously. Eclipsis is always required on the noun where possible, but it will be in instead of I before a noun starting with a vowel. Now, the preposition can change further in some instances. Before countries, or any noun really, but we're talking about places and countries in this video. So, before countries with the article un, which means the, it or in will become sa or sun, which is a word that combines I plus the article un. So I have 4 different examples of the 4 different kinds of in Irish. So Belfast in Irish is Belfarscha. In Belfast, in Belfarscha. Belfarscha does not contain the word the. It also starts with a consonant. So we'll want to use the form of in that's just I, and eclipse the B in Belfarscha, in Belfarscha. M is always the buddy letter of B. For our next example, Ecuador, which is Ecuador. In Ecuador is in Ecuador. Ecuador, just like Belfarscha, doesn't contain the word un, which means the. So we know we're going to use either I or in. But it starts with a vowel, so we'll choose in Ecuador. So next, the word Greece, Greg. Now, the word un, usually you won't pronounce the in everyday speech unless the following noun starts with a vowel. So in this case, instead of saying Greg, you'll usually just say Greg. Anyway, that's the word for Greece, or literally the Greece. So, since it begins with the, we know we have to use sa or sun. This begins with a consonant, a G, so we'll use sa. So, in Greece is Zagreb. Last example, we have Iceland, which is an Iceland, or literally the Iceland. So, we know we have to pick sa or sun. It begins with a vowel, so we pick sun. Sunnysland in Iceland. So just for fun, I want to put together all the phrases we've used today to tell y'all where I'm from. Try to see how much of it you can understand. For phrases or words that I didn't explain in this video, I'll put what they mean on the screen. Ragu in North Carolina ma. Hulni me in shin, gujiguro me ya bhliain dish. Wogmich guji in chapan in a yeshin, agus vima john arfai tree bliana. Wogma Jarash go North Carolina, agus honimbo John gajigarome ort mliana dish. And shin, wogmid ga Florida arfai tree bliana, agus aga jayu arfad, wogmid ga Alabama, savlian ya vila a kahe, agus tame a mahoni and shaw a yo hin. Rogu agus togu mayad, agus galore glunta de Mahaila in Shaw in Alabama. Did you get all that? If you did, let me know down below. So that's all I got for y'all for now for this video. I hope to not go quite as long between videos from now on, at least on average, maybe a couple months. And let me just say, I can't thank y'all enough for watching my videos. This kind of just started as like a fun side hobby for me, but because of your support and feedback, it's become like an important part of my life. Because not only does this help me to like learn better when I'm doing these videos and solidify the things as I'm going and learning, but also I feel like I'm helping other people out there, and I'm helping to spread the language in whatever little way I can, and like being useful or something. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Oh, one more thing. One of y'all at PO4362 gave me recently a really good link to a website, which I have saved now as one of my great resources. That's basically a compilation by this one guy, and he compiled all these links to different resources that are mostly Ulster resources. And it's got all these links to pronunciation guides, stories, and grammar, and word lists, and all kinds of cool stuff, especially if you're interested in the Ulster dialect. So thank you, PO4362. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want, maybe even comment down below and tell me where you're from in Irish. Also, if you'd like to view and keep these video slides that I've had today on the other side of the screen, you can find them at Dropbox, Facebook, and Instagram, all of which I'll link down below. Instagram is definitely my home base of operations, so if you want to follow me there, please feel free to. That'd be great. As always, it's been real fun hanging out with you guys, and I can't wait to talk to y'all again. But Gajishin, Slangafol.